At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
What's up, everybody? You are listening to the Strength and Knowledge Podcast. This is Dr. Zach Baker, and I have with me one of our two sports residents at R2P, Dr. Tyler Betteridge, who just wrapped up his monthly research article review. We're currently covering the spine, and he tackled an article that looks at ergonomic backpacks and if and how it has an influence on our biomechanical efficiency and our tolerance to that book bag. So, Tyler, pretty interesting article. I think you can go a lot of different ways with this. You can look at it from everything from our youth population that has to have a book bag for school and how that may influence some of the low back pain, either injuries or pathologies that they are dealing with, and if and how large of a role does that play. And then you can think at the whole other end of the continuum. Think about like military, tactical athlete, where no different than, football players who have to wear helmets and shoulder pads. Military and tactical athletes often have to have some sort of backpack, rucksack in regards to carrying their gear and to carry out some of their tasks and missions that they're on. So it's important to make sure we have a good understanding of how does this influence us and can we modify it in any way from an advantageous standpoint. So Tyler, take a minute, just go over what the title of the article was and what the general intention of the article was.
Sure. So our title of our article is Development and Experimental Verification of an Ergonomic Backpack. Reason I was interested in this is because during my time in the military, I was kind of a gear junkie. Have frequent conversations with guys about, which was the best rucksack to use, which one was the most comfortable. So I want to do a little bit of a dive into what modifications we can make in a backpack to make it more ergonomically efficient and to make it more comfortable while carrying heavy loads. This study had a two-phase approach. Their first phase was to develop a ergonomically efficient backpack that was comfortable and compare that in a cohort of participants against a more typical designer backpack. So think a Dora the Explorer type backpack, and see how the comfort and physiological changes in muscle were affected by the ergonomic backpack as opposed to a more commercially available one.
Cool. So with this, they were really looking at two big things. Phase one, are they able to create a backpack or book bag that distributes weight amongst other body parts instead of having it just rest all on the shoulders and the back? And then figuring out, is there a way to attach this weight in a more advantageous manner? So can we keep it as close to the body as possible? And can we do that through the addition of straps? So prior to these phases, it looks like they took a variety of anthropometric measurements, trying to figure out all of the different things that can influence those two categories in regards to bag comfort and bag design. And then after that, talk a little bit about phase two. So they're looking at, can we modify this bag design? And then once they're able to modify that bag design, what were some of the things in phase two that they were looking at to see how was it actually affecting them from more of like a musculoskeletal standpoint?
Sure. So in phase two, they took 30 male college-age participants who were of similar anthropometrics as the sample that they took to design the backpack. They attached electrodes to different muscle groups, so they focused on the erector spinae, the rectus abdominis, and the trapezius. Those were used for more of their objective measures, where they were measuring EMG activity while carrying a bag. There was also a subjective component to this study where each participant graded the bag on a 0 to 7 bag comfort scale. So basically the way they ran this was each patient carried each of the 2 backpacks with 3 different loads at 10% body weight, 15% body weight, and 20% body weight. They carried each of the bags with each of those loads for 5 minutes around the lab with a 5-minute rest between sessions. And they were able to gather a pre-bag carry comfort score and then a post-bag carry comfort score, as well as looking at the EMG activity for percent of max voluntary contraction while carrying those bags.
Cool. Now, admittedly speaking, I don't have a great reference in regards to how heavy rucksacks or backpacks typically are. I know when you're out like in the hiking community, you obviously want to have as light as a backpack on as you can. But just in your experience, when you were doing some of your different tasks in the military, what's a usual weight that you actually have on your back? Are we talking 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds? Does it vary, depend on what mission or task you're headed out on?
Definitely. So different branches will have different requirements. For me, our yearly PT test included a 3-mile ruck in which we had to carry at least 60 pounds in our backpack of dry weight. But early on in training, when I was going through our initial training pipeline, our test out ruck was a 12-mile ruck, and I had a total loadout. I think I measured it in at around 115 pounds of gear between backpack, body armor, and all the other equipment that we had to carry. So it can definitely vary based on the mission, based on how long that mission is planned to last for, and what environments you're operating in. You know, if you're in a colder weather environment, you might have to, or a more austere environment, you might have to pack more food or more clothing based on where you're going to be.
Cool. So to kind of summarize the design of this article, 2 different phases. Phase 1 was really getting anthropometric measurements of all of the individuals who would be involved and using those metrics to see if they could design a bag that was going to be the most effective and efficient for them in relation to how the bag was going to carry weight, the location of the straps, and how that weight would be distributed throughout their body. Then phase 2, they were kind of seeing, all right, phase 1 was theory. Now we need to see what actually played out. Now that we have this designed bag, what does that look like when we actually hook up sensors and do EMG activity with the muscles? Did it have any reduced muscle activity compared to a standard book bag? How are people rating this from a comfort standpoint? Is what we thought was going to be best and what we designed any better than what's already out there? So after they went through phase 1 and phase 2, now we get to the fun part. Did it work? Did it not work? What did they actually find when they went through this, Tyler?
Sure. So in regards to the subjective reporting on that bag comfort scale, they found that the developed backpack, so the backpack that they designed, were rated as being more comfortable, 24.26% on average. The study also noted that regardless of which bag you were carrying, there was an inverse relationship between the load carried and the comfortability rating. So heavier weights usually equated to less comfort, regardless of backpack. In regards to muscular activity, they noticed reduced muscular activity of all 3 of the muscle groups studied when compared to the commercial bag in those who were carrying the ergonomically designed bag. So the ergonomically designed bag was more efficient and there was less muscular activity in each of those muscle groups. And Also, something that I found interesting was that there was a non-significant difference in EMG activity at only 10% body weight, which they attributed to most backpacks that people typically carry are, within that 0 to 10%. So people may have already been conditioned to carrying that weight, and thus you would have seen less of a spike in EMG activity with only a 10% load.
And then it looks like the other two big bullet points they found, when the load got heavier and it started getting up to like 20% of our body weight, they found some of the EMG activity shifted with the designer book bag, the one that they created, to rectus abdominis. So it took them away from loading the traps and from loading the erector spinae and put it more onto rectus abdominis. And they also saw that with this group, they were able to keep a more anatomically neutral posture as opposed to going into excessive trunk flexion as well. So it's pretty interesting. It looks like the book bag that they designed did what they intended it to do. It was a more comfortable bag, and we can dive into the details of placebo effect and all that stuff in regards to, are you getting a quote-unquote special-made bag versus a regular bag, and how you'll perceive that as more or less comfortable. But it did carry a statistically significant score from a comfort standpoint. From an EMG standpoint, there was a reduction in EMG activity and a shift in what muscles were involved away from the ones that are traditionally the areas of the body where we tend to report pain, upper trap area, low back area. And there was a change in posture. And you can kind of deduce from that if we're in a more anatomically neutral, regular, natural, however you want to quantify that posture, but we're not making compensatory patterns to accommodate the book bag, I would like to think we can walk longer, we can carry that bag longer, we can do more of our other tasks without the cognitive demand, the discomfort, and the mechanical inefficiencies associated with that. Now, getting to the end of this article, what do you take away from this? Like, you're a clinician, currently you're in the outpatient setting, but if you're in the outpatient setting, if you're in more of the military tactical setting, or you just interact with that population, how does this information better equip you as a PT?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, provide some insight on some patient education that we can utilize as far as ergonomics and load carriage techniques that will help people in these populations who have to carry a load, whether it be a backpack or a rucksack, to avoid injury and reduce fatigue. Something I found interesting about the bag that they designed was that there were almost like they had like two saddle bags on either one on either hip, which helped to disperse the load away from directly through the spine. On most of our military backpacks, there's a waist strap which includes some webbing that you can attach some pockets to, and it has some modularity in that respect. So if you're in the tactical population, think about utilizing that MOLLE webbing, throwing a few pockets on the sides, and throwing some gear into those pockets to take less of the load directly posterior and distributing more to the sides. And then also, given how much EMG activity that was observed in the rectus abdominis, they noted that that was the highest EMG activity out of all of the muscle groups studied. I think that just really importance the importance of developing core stability and endurance in any of our patients who might be carrying a load on their back in preventing injury at the spine.
Cool. And I think the two things that I take away from this is we've always talked about how, oh, my back hurts. All right, well, be mindful of how you're carrying your book bag. If you're talking to your school-age kids, this does just show how you have the book bag placed, how much weight is in the book bag, how long you're carrying that book bag. It can influence muscle activity, posture, and tolerance to task. Now, I'm not saying that my little 8-year-old daughter has a 40-pound book bag on her back, but these are things that do play a role from an environmental standpoint. So no different than when you tackle the conversations of how is your sleep? How is your diet? Do you have any stressors in your life? All of the more kind of multifactorial things that can influence musculoskeletal pain. This is another environmental factor that may be contributing to that. Then when I do think about the population that is going to have to carry some sort of backpack with a significant load in it, how can we better equip them for that, either from an educational standpoint or from a training standpoint in the clinic? And if somebody has limited exposure to rucking and carrying weight in a backpack, then maybe we have some sort of build up to that. Or we just make them aware, hey, if you're going to have to spend a significant amount of time on your feet carrying a bag that has 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds in it, and you've never done that before, you might want to practice that a few times before you have to do it in a more significant standpoint. Or if you're rehabbing somebody and you know that that is going to be one of their demands that they have to do, how can we incorporate some of those demands in the clinic? Whether it's through farmer's carries, whether it's through actually like weighted vest and the addition of weights to that vest as they're doing their activities in the clinic. But I think you keep in mind those progressive overload principles with that as well. So Tyler, as always, thank you for doing the dirty work, finding the research, synthesizing it, filtering it for us. If you are listening and enjoyed this episode, remember you are listening to the Strength and Knowledge podcast. Please share, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for next episode when Asher, the other sports resident, is on talking about his research article regarding the spine.
Breaking news from the stadium tonight as an anonymous fan foot the bill for 55,000 hot dogs, bringing that sweet tubed meat to everyone in attendance.
Free dogs! Yeah!
55,000 hot dogs? What does that even cost?
While the identity of this Frankfurter philanthropist remains anonymous, their all-beefy generosity will go down in history.
The new Mega Millions. More to win means more to give. How you spend it is up to you. Yeah!
For game odds and details, visit sceducationlottery.com.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.